Well, the first thing I want to do is say good morning, folks, and tell you how happy I am to be back with you. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it felt like 200 years. And, okay, a couple of comments. Everything I have on today is somewhere between 10, 12, 15, and 20 years old. You know, I looked in the closet the other day and I thought, well, we know it's going to be hot. It's not going to rain. What should I wear? And I thought, you know what I want to wear? And you can really maybe sort of kind of see it. It's this magnificent piece of jewelry. It's the sun, the moon, and the stars. It's our cosmos. And to me, it represents the world. A dear, dear friend gave it to me probably over 30 years ago. So I thought, okay, if I wear that pin, what am I going to wear with it? So I had to go down in the basement and take the plastic bag off the blouse that's been hanging there for heaven only knows how long. So fashionable, whatever. Okay, fantastic. I usually have a travel story. And I didn't think I was going to get one this morning when I was driving down 94, and you shouldn't do this, I slightly averted my eyes from straight forward to the side, and I caught a billboard that said, "Is the Bible believable?" And I was like, what? Well, I couldn't turn around and see. And I thought, next week when I'm driving here, I am going to be slowing down to make sure. But you know what came into my mind? And Annette's going to love this because she's a vocalist. I thought of that great song from Porgy and Bess. It ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, they ain't necessarily so. If you remember the rest of that song, it goes on to talk about old Noah lived 900 years. Old Noah lived 900 years. But who calls that living when no woman will give in to a man what is 900 years? I thought, talk about, is the Bible believable? No! Certainly not in statistics of how long people lived. We do know, but we don't know the system, but we do know that they had a different way of keeping track of age and time. And folks, we've all seen some very 90-ish, nice-looking men walking around whom we'd love to have a cup of tea with. So no, you cannot believe what the Bible says on something like that. That's really it. But I did find something in the Bible that I do believe we can believe in. And this is not my favorite version. This is the New International Version. For Genesis, I sometimes like the older editions. But we go right to the beginning. It says the beginning, Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Okay, I'm not sure how to imagine the Spirit of God hovering over Lake Michigan. But if that works for you, go for it. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Well, I say that every time I walk into my closet and flip the switch, let there be light, so I can figure out what I'm going to find. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called light. You know me, I would put an S in front of that, and it would be she called it light. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. And it goes on and on and on. And at the end of it, God looked at it all and said, "Good, good." I do believe that that is the part of the Bible that we can believe. That an infinite intelligence looked out, though what would a spirit look out with? That implies that God has eyes. But intelligence intuitively knows. So God looked out and went, I think we need some stuff here. We need some water, and we need some earth, and we need some stars, and we need some sun, and we need some planets. And then we need some trees, and we need some flowers. I mean, if we don't have trees, what are the squirrels that I'm going to create going to live in and run around? And the story goes on, and then it says, and God looked at everything, in effect, and went, nice, but it's missing something. We need somebody. We need a living thing. I have yet to create something. And then it says, and God took clay, etc., and formed it, and breathed spirit into it, and created Adam, the first person. God, however, was a loving spirit, friends, and said, he's looking kind of lonely. He needs company. Okay, recently in a Wednesday class, I gave them my interpretation of how God took a rib and formed it into woman. No, God moved the rib aside or took it away so that the loving heart could expand and become the embodied woman. Which is why we have a feminine energy and a masculine energy, and the two work together in us, the embodied presence of God. Wow. Wow. I think that this is an appropriate piece of scripture to use for what I'm thinking of. This is my 4th of July lecture, talk, celebration, whatever you want to call it. It falls on Saturday next week, and on Sunday, thanks be to God, I will be back, but I have a different title. And I thought, I would like to share with people. I am old enough to remember 1976. You've all figured that one out for darn sure. And I had 2 little kids. One was in 2nd grade, so that he was coming up on 8. And he brought home this paper flag, as the usual piece of paper from school, and he'd crayoned on it a picture of a flag. And I crawled up on a chair, I think, and I pasted it on the porch overhang from the apartment above us. My late husband and I were actually living in Stuttgart, Germany, where he was posted to the American consulate. And I hung up that flag to say, an American lives here, and we're celebrating. Of course, it was a work day for us. There was a huge reception at the consulate, so we got a babysitter for the kids, put on our good clothes, and went and spent several hours greeting people and celebrating. And I remember I was so proud. Okay, here's the true confessions part. At one point in my life, having had wonderful opportunities to travel all over the world, really, I used to stand in airport lines with my passport, and in my mind I'd be going, nah, I got the best one, you don't. I know that is not humility, friends, but that's where I was. I was so proud, and I was so happy, and I was so celebratory about the fact that the couple pieces of paper that I had stapled together with a cover indicated that I was a citizen of the United States of America. And then in the process of traveling and meeting all those people who had the other passports, I came to understand that they too celebrated the country in which they lived. And it doesn't matter where the borders are. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what the language looks like, whether it's our alphabet or looks like little squigglies, or the Greek alphabet, or the Russian alphabet, or the Ukrainian alphabet, or the Arabic alphabet. It is the language that we as a people speak. Yet there's only one language, friends. There is the language of God's love for us. Because that's why God created the world. Unity teaches that there are two action spaces, as it were. Heaven and earth. Heaven is the realm of the mind. It's where our intelligence, which we share with God, is operative within us. It's the intelligence that says, do not stand on a golf course holding up an iron rod in a thunderstorm. It also is smart and says, it's going to rain, take an umbrella. It's little stuff like that, right down to who am I going to be? Who am I going to love? How am I going to vote? What job will I have? It functions throughout our entire life. It is called thought. What does unity teach? That thoughts produce effects. In fact, Charles Fillmore's famous quote is, thoughts held where? In mind, produce after their kind. It's a little archaic. We don't talk like that anymore, but he nailed it, folks. It's basically what you think is what you manifest. You know, we have the saying, well, I'll believe it when I see it. No, when you believe it, you will see it. We think it's coincidence. How many times have you been thinking about somebody and going, gee, I really need to call them, and all of a sudden the phone rings? Some of us still have phones that ring. Or some of us have new phones, and we fix them so that they still sound like the old phones. And you go, hello? Oh, I was just thinking about you. It produced an effect. Some of you know that very often after church on Sundays, I drive like a absolute bat out of you-know-where to get to Barnes & Noble and buy the Sunday New York Times. Yes, do I break the speed limit sometimes? But only if necessary. And the thing is, the section that I cut out of the paper a couple weeks ago, I forgot to put the date on. So it's the section called Metropolitan Diary. Friends, I want to read you this story. The title of it is Hale and Hardy, Dear Diary. It was a bitter cold day in the Upper East Side. It takes place in New York City. My husband and I were leaving the hospital after his cataract surgery. There were snowbanks lining the streets, and a nurses' strike was in full swing, making the corner of 68th Street and York Avenue very chaotic. My husband had a huge eye patch on and was walking a bit unsteady as I tried unsuccessfully to hail a cab. Got the picture? Suddenly, I heard a man's loud voice behind me. Hey, hey, he shouted. I didn't dare turn to see whatever seemed to be angering him. Then I heard him shout again, taxi, taxi! And I thought, I'll let him get the next cab. I thought to myself, he didn't sound like somebody I wanted to mess with. The next thing I knew, a huge construction worker wearing a hard hat and a neon vest was running past us. He ran into the middle of the street, stopping all traffic and approaching a parked cab. He banged on the window and spoke to the driver. Then he pointed at me. This is your cab, lady. But stay right there. I'm coming to get you. Within seconds, he was at our side and escorted us to the cab. As he loaded us in, he addressed my husband, Pay attention to this, folks. Quote, "You're going to vote, okay, buddy," he said reassuringly. "I'm praying for you today." Wow. That would look good on film, wouldn't it? That would look good on film. Can't you just see it? It could happen in Detroit. It could happen in Washington, D.C. It could happen in Chicago. It could happen any place where a person who understands the power of thought, which is our communication agent with God. I'm praying for you today. For whom are we praying today? Okay, I got another funny one for you. I read somewhere that you got to get 10 minutes of morning sun. Actually, it was from Joyce Dimack, one of our congregants, who is probably up there somewhere. She is a faithful attender of my Wednesday Zoom class. Boy, do we have a lot of fun from 11 to 12:30, folks. I'll tell you about that one later. And I said, who would sit in their garage in the sun for 10 minutes? And she said, oh, my neighbor does every day. She's getting her 10 minutes of sun because getting 10 minutes of the morning sun affects your daily energy. You got no glasses, no sunglasses, not even, which means I can't read, folks, because when I take off the glasses, reading is out of the question. So what am I supposed to do? You know what I do? I now sit there with my hands folded, and I pray for the healing of the world. Very specifically, I pray for the healing of the countries and the planet for 10 minutes. And then the dinger goes, because I bring the kitchen thingy with me. I'm not going to futz around with the phone. It takes longer to do it on the phone than it does to just turn the 10-minute thing on the egg timer. And I go back into the house. Friends, I've done two things. I've given myself a dose of sunshine, which may or may not be useful. But the important thing is I have spent 10 minutes of conscious time purposefully engaged in thought, which is what the power of God is within us. So, our question becomes, today, what is humanity thinking? Or the way I'd really like to put it is, what in heaven's name are we thinking? Or more appropriately, what in heaven's nature are we thinking? Because heaven, remember, is a state of mind. I heard a story the other day that made me a wee bit sad. And it was a dear elderly lady whose middle-aged son was showing her a picture of the universe. And we have such beautiful pictures of the universe now, with all the stars and the planets and the asteroids and the thises and the that's. And she looked at me and she said, well, where's heaven? And my first thought was, you gotta be kidding. My second thought was, oh, because she said, where are we going to go when we die? She had a valid question for her belief system, which tells her that if she lives a certain way, upon her departing this life experience, she will go to a place called heaven. We don't know what it's like. We've had lots of stories about it. But unfortunately, nobody who's been there has come back to give us the details. And then I thought, I have to look at that woman's question another way. Where is heaven? And I thought, what does my thought process teach me that heaven is within me? That's why we chose the hymn, I behold the Christ in you. We behold the Christ in you. We behold. When we look in the mirror, you know what's coming. My favorite morning expression. Good morning, God. Thank you for yesterday. What am I going to thank you for today? Friends, That is the energy field in which we operate and in which we affect the world. We affect the world. I'm not going to recite the sad list of things in the world. You got newspapers, you got radio, you got TV, you got your phone. You can't avoid it. So I don't need to recite it. We know what it looks like, what it sounds like. But friends, do we understand that these are effects? And therefore the question is, what am I thinking? What are we thinking as a people? Here's an interesting one, because it's kind of cute and sweet, okay? Again, in New York City. I was walking back to my hotel room from the Flatiron District at about 1 a.m. after a celebratory evening of slightly too much champagne and wine in December in 2024. I desperately wanted a slice of pizza. Having grown up in New Jersey, but now living on a small island in the Pacific Northwest, it was a craving that once sparked did not let go until satisfied. Arriving at my hotel at 50th and Madison Avenue, I could only find a truck serving hot pretzels. There was nary a pizza place in sight, and I knew I was most likely out of luck. Just then, I spotted two men walking east, carrying a pizza box. I stopped them, explained my quest, and asked where they had found their treasure. They said it was from a place about 6 blocks away, but warned me that it was about to close. Well, yeah, if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, it's gonna close really soon. One of them surely noticed my crestfallen look. Without hesitation, he opened the pizza box. "Here," he said, "take a slice." I paused, but he insisted in the offhand way one might at 1 o'clock in the morning, like, "Here, take a slice." Moments later, he and his companion walked off as my "thank you" echoed in the cold night air. I stood there smiling, stunned and holding a still hot slice of pepperoni with black olive pizza that was, for many reasons, the best slice I've ever had in New York City. Friends, I found this story so moving. A, because thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. That woman wanted a slice she wanted a piece of pizza. The question becomes, what do we want? What do I want? And the second one was the courage she had. Here's the thing, friends. Sometimes to achieve our desired goal, we have to take a risk. Okay, how many of us, the women in this room, are going to walk up to two strange men on a street in a big city at 1 o'clock in the morning? Duh. But she did. She asked them. And what happened? They opened the box and she got a slice of pizza. Friends, do we see the power of mental thought? And it isn't just about pizza, and it isn't about getting a taxi, and it is about creating the environment in which we desire to live. It's thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And what are we thinking? I think I've told you this one Sunday, but I'm going to tell you again because that's how long I've been doing it. On the 1st of May, I turned off the radio when I'm driving in the car. Just turned it off. I have this lovely radio, and I turned it off. Well, the first week, my hand was like, I could just touch the little button, it'll come on real fast, it's got presets, and it just, and I kept going, no. And I thought, geez, I think they call this withdrawal from the radio? Okay. Well, I made it through the first month. And what did I notice? Well, I saw a greener green. I saw more flowers. I saw the faces of people. I saw cars with people. I just need to make a left turn, or I need to pull out of this driveway. And I, going slowly already because traffic was, just stopped. And of course the car behind me stopped, and the person drove, and sometimes they didn't. Okay, the first few times I went, jerk. Okay, the next few times it was, may the bluebird of happiness, on your birthday cake. You all know that one. And then I thought, Linda, don't wreck a good thing. You're doing a good deed. Can you carry it through to the end? And I would say, may you complete your trip safely. Sometimes they'd wave, sometimes they didn't. Friends, what we do on a daily basis with every thought we have puts an imprint on our planet. Puts an imprint on our planet. These are facts, friends. They have consequences. Why? Because we live in community. We live in community. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and Sean back out there, 15. We are a community this morning. And I don't want to turn around and look, but you can count and see who's there. We live in a community, whether we are here present or we are out there. I remember when COVID hit and everybody had to do stuff on Zoom, it was like, now where would we be without it? Where would we be without it? Our ability to connect with one another. And they are doing studies on kids who spend all their time. Have you ever seen the pictures of them? 5 or 6 of them are in a screen. They're in a circle. But they're not looking at each other and talking to each other. They're poking around on their stupid little devices. God didn't create us with vocal cords, lips that move and form words to look at glass screens. God created us to be able to speak to one another. As Jesus the prophet said, love one another as I have loved you. And how did Jesus express that love? He taught people. He taught people. I find it absolutely fascinating, friends, that the 3 Abrahamic religions, in the order in which they were found, is Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And it's called, they're Abrahamic because Abraham, the patriarch, is the patriarch in all 3 of those religions. But it's very interesting that the first and the last prohibit the personification of God. There's no pictures of God or statues of God in a synagogue, a temple, or a mosque. It is only Christianity that has pictured God in a masculine male form. It's what it is. And yet when we close our eyes and we go into the heavenly space that is the presence of God within us, what do we see? If we get really lucky, we start going through the chakras, then we get colored lights, then we get white space, or whatever you get, or you don't get anything. But you find a sense of peace and connection. Peace and connection. Friends, we are made in the image and likeness of God, which means that we are creators. We are creators and thinkers. And what we think is what we create. I got one more story for you because it's kind of like the other side of the coin. Again, in New York, it says, Dear Diary, I was in the menswear department of Macy's looking at shirts. 2 women nearby were doing the same. After examining some shirts, one of them stopped, put down the one she was holding. She went, "You know what? I don't even like him." And the other one put down the shirt she was holding and she said, "Yeah, and I don't like him either." They both walked away. Friends, we have the competence of discernment. What is good for us, what is not good for us. And that's basically what we are celebrating this coming Saturday. Made in God's image and likeness, we have the freedom of choice. We can say yes, and we can say no. I remember way, way, way back before I was not old enough to vote, but John F. Kennedy was running for president. So you know what year that was. I wasn't old enough to vote. I remember the Sunday before Election Day, Father Bruno stood up in the pulpit and he gave his lesson. He said, "Now I'm just going to remind you all, Tuesday is Election Day. And no, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I'm just going to tell you how important it is to vote." What integrity! What integrity when the world was waiting to see a Catholic president elected. And what happened? Well, it happened. And unfortunately, I never got to vote for him because by the time I would have been old enough to vote for him, he had been assassinated. There is an example, friends. We can either think good or we can think, fill in your bad word, whatever it is. This whole concept of thoughts held in mind is powerfully significant for us because it is the matrix within which we live. It's the process by which we bring about effects. And so let us taking that thought enter into our time of meditation. Close your eyes or not close your eyes. Feet on the floor to ground yourself or not. Hands folded, hands not folded. It doesn't matter. What matters is allowing your mind, your thought to rise. Dear God, we know that we are made in your image and likeness. We know that we live and move and have our being in you. It does not matter what we look like in our physical forms. Not our color, not our shape, not the kink or straightness of our hair, not the sounds that come out of our mouth in strange languages. There's only one language, and that is the love of the heart of God within us. We pray now. We pray now as we celebrate the freedom that we have to make decisions based on thought and choices that bring us consequences. Let us hold to the truth that there is only one power, one presence, God the good, all-powerful, everywhere present, all-loving. And we are one in that, with that, and a living expression of it. Let that be our intention for God to be seen in the universe. And now let us be led in praying the Lord's Prayer.
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us